Welcome to the Rock Fight, where we speak our truth, slay sacred cows, and sometimes agree to disagree. This is an outdoor podcast that aims for the head. I'm Colin True. It's Monday, and to get your week started right, we're going to talk about the latest from the North Face, as well as some outdoor retailer news from Gearhead Outfitters and Dick's Sporting Goods. But before we get to that, a few housekeeping items like we always do. Please follow and rate The Rock Fight. This podcast that you're listening to right now, leave us that 5-star rating. Click follow, guys. Follow is the key thing to tap. If you like The Rock Fight, you're definitely going to like Gear and Beer, our other podcast on the Rock Fight Podcast Network. So please check out that show. And lastly, we want to hear from you. Send us your feedback by sending an email to myrockfight@gmail.com, reaching out on the socials where we can be found as Rock Fight Co. All right, let's start this show.
Welcome to the Rock Fight, Rock Fight, Rock Fight.
All right, so we're recording this on Sunday, September 15th, 2024. And this past Thursday night, the Buffalo Bills, they played the Miami Dolphins on Thursday Night Football. During the game, Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa was concussed on a play, and he had to leave the game. Now, depending on who you listen to, this was the third or even fifth concussion he's received in the past 2 years. And in the days since, the discourse has been centered on not how long Tua should wait to come back and play football again, but if he should come back and play football at all. And you don't have to look too deeply if you don't pay attention to the NFL to find out that the NFL waited way too long to address concussions in a real way. It's only been about a decade since a real push started to change the game from ultra big and violent hits being one of the signature reasons we all watch football, to a time when we would actually encourage a player to retire after a big hit, like what happened to Tua the other night. And if you're wondering why I'm talking about football and concussions, it's because I think a lot about acceptable risks in the outdoors. Football is a violent game that is loaded with risk. And even with rule changes and improvements to technique and strategy, every football player is one play away from an injury that could change the trajectory of their career or their lives. Now, risk is also baked into the outdoors. As Fitz Cahall told me on his first Rock Fight appearance way back in early 2023, part of the reason we do these things is because there's risk. Our skill sets in a certain outdoor activity may progress, but we can't mitigate every risk, and we may not be getting paid like pro football players, but we choose to go out there and take those risks anyway because it's kind of part of the fun. And just like with football, back when the outdoors was starting to explode in the 1990s, risk-taking in the extreme part of those sports was key to the growth it experienced. I've talked about it a bunch before on the show, but go watch an old episode of MTV Sports. And the outdoors was cool because it was pretty punk rock. It was contrarian. It was different. It was something that only like a nut job would go and pursue. How could you go and do such a thing? Oh my God, it's so crazy. And maybe you didn't get into rock climbing. Maybe you didn't get into rock climbing to do the same stuff that we saw Dan Osmond doing. But you definitely watched Dan Osmond do that stuff and thought he was a badass. But at some point, as we age, the shine starts to come off. Young and brash doesn't always allow us to process the real implications of the risk. And when folks like Dan Osmond end up not being with us anymore, it gets harder to justify that risk. And I think about this every winter when, like clockwork, some members of our community die in an avalanche, and I can't help it starts to feel just very unnecessary. And I've been thinking about that a lot this week because in addition to Bills Dolphins this past week, we also got a brand new video from the North Face. The name of the video is We Play Different. And that's the name of their attached campaign to the video. And it's objectively well done. I don't think anybody can look at that and not say that. And it really taps into a lot of the old feelings of our community and our industry that no doubt many of my peers share when considering the why of going outside. There's steep lines being skied, whippers being taken, there's x-rays of broken bones, and there's bloody lips. They're kind of playing all the hits, but they do it with a real modern aesthetic that makes the video exceedingly rewatchable. And I've watched the video, the full-length 60-second cut, at least 6 times now. And honestly, it's kind of like the outdoor version of the Nike winning isn't for everyone ad, the one we talked about here in the Rock Fight just a few weeks ago. They talk about, quote, out here, we don't play games, we don't use whistles, we play chicken with gravity. And it's kind of leaning into that harder edge of the outdoors. But for me, there was a key difference between this ad by the North Face and Nike's recent efforts, because while the winning isn't for everyone campaign was edgy in an era of participation trophies and everyone, being nice to each other, We Play Different felt, as good as it was, felt kind of routine. Like I'd seen it before. And I think it's because I went on a YouTube deep dive of the North Face and other outdoor brand videos and commercials, and it kind of verified my feelings. If you go back to videos from 10 to 15 years ago, maybe this production or the sound or narration hasn't aged very well, but there's a lot of the same in terms of tone, a lot of pushing the we're badass narrative. And then I found an ad by the North Face that didn't have an air date in the YouTube notes, but it must have been made in the 1990s based on the quality and the fact that it featured climber Pete Athens looking quite a bit younger than he does today. And the theme of that ad is exploration. North Face's tagline is never stop exploring. And the ad explains that the risk was worth it that you take in the outdoors and in the backcountry because those who go out of doors, they were seeing new places and accomplishing these new feats for the first time. And I have to admit that I'd sort of forgotten that used to be sort of a crucial piece of why we would take these risks. Like, what are you going to explore? What are you going to see? And so then I watched We Play Different again, and marketing the risk without the discovery, it just didn't hit home. It felt a little shallow. And look, maybe I don't have any new ideas here. The risk if you participate in these sports, if a brand glorifies it in the name of badassery, I understand it. Plus, what's the alternative? Because also in my search, I found videos from folks like Code Epoxy who do meaningful work, but their early brand videos were focused on things like why a llama was their mascot. And spoiler alert, the reason a llama is their mascot is because llamas make people smile. So look, I can look at this video by the North Face and give them credit for making a sweet piece of marketing that plays into their heritage and is frankly the most outdoor thing I've seen in quite a while, but I still have to watch it and wonder and ask what's next because we've seen this before. The only constant in the outdoor world lately seems to be the consensus that things are changing. Who participates is changing. The way we go outside, it's changing. Our space is expanded to include so many new faces who go outside for so many different reasons. So is there only one way to tell brand stories? Is this just the North Face way of telling brand stories and other people need to do things differently? Or sort of like our stagnant outdoor media scene, are we just bogged down in the way that we always do things and no one with any clout is willing to try something new? And whatever we decide, I do know that we need more Dan Cortez in our lives because I moved to make Dan the official czar of the outdoors so we can bring MTV Sports back, which will just, it'll fix everything if we do that, guys. So, but it's time now to bring in producer Dave, who this conversation is tailor-made for. I mean, this has got brand and heritage and the outdoors and visuals and music. Dave, what'd you think of We Play Different?
Haven't seen it.
Okay, so let's move on. More with Thermore. Let's go.
So what you think? Okay. So what you're saying is that your takeaway from We Play Different is that it's actually just the same. That it's not different.
It doesn't. Yeah, I think it's it is good. I go back to my original point. I stand by. It is good. Like you watch it, like wow, this is a good video. But it feels like I've seen it. I have seen it before. Like everything in it just feels the same.
You probably have seen it before in the sense that it's an anthem video, a mantra, a hype piece. Like it's definitely that type of big, broad umbrella.
Yeah.
It's athleticizing the outdoor in terms of fast paced. Again, I don't see it so much as the hardcore. For the hardcore, I think it's more of a less hardcore's vision of what the hardcore is. Because actually the hardcore is 23 hours of boredom punctuated by, a few seconds of exhilaration, right? The work that it takes to do those things and, to get to the climb is all that preparation and again, slow go, where this is really the snap to kind of element of what it means to be, hardcore. But it's also a sense that it's the similar tactics. You brought up Nike, and that's not an accident. This was created by a couple of longtime Wieden & Kennedy Nike account creative directors. Done a lot of pieces, and probably some of the same ones you just talked about over the last 10 years. It's a ton of footage. It's a deep cut with Shaka Khan. It's got this high-powered post-production in it. Look. I really think I would call this a polished gem of a compilation piece. They've taken a bunch of footage from all different sources and all different sides of the action side of their brand, and turned it into one cohesive piece. So technically, it's really an achievement. It's really, really well done. I think they nailed it. I think they nailed it from all of that. Now we're talking about the brand side of this. This isn't us versus them. Right? This is kind of laying down hey, if this appeals to you, you're our type of person. Okay? And it's not for everyone, but it's not exclusive. I'm not putting up a gateway for you. If you appreciate this tone, if you appreciate this vibe, then you're someone who's going to like what we have to put out there. Right. And by even, comparing with, what is it? We don't play games. We don't play games with whistles or referee. We play with adrenaline and euphoria. And then it goes down that kind of this, that. And I think that's, we need these. Brands need these. You need to be able to set parameters and identifiers for your consumers to coalesce around. And you don't need to try to be everything and all at once. I think that's also what you see here. This is the adrenaline side of the brand. This is absolutely, okay? That does not mean that they're not trying to include folks that haven't been included before, or they're not trying to be welcoming or thoughtful or contemplative. Those are different areas of a brand expression for a different piece. You can't do everything all at once, right? And I think that's a danger. In fact, actually, this is what homogenizes work, and it's what happens when committees get involved in creating work, is that everyone has their side that they want to push into the piece of creative, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, you get this milk toasty, gelatinous, kind of gook. And this isn't. It's sharp. It's really sharp. It breaks through. How hard it is today to break through it, and a documentary is not going to do it. Right? You need something that is really, that steps up and does it. It's funky, it's upbeat, it's tribe defining. You got your Alex Honnold appearance thrown in there, but it's really not about celebrity. As the outdoors, we know, as we've kind of talked about, the outdoor really is never about the athlete as much as it is about the brand. The brand is the star.
Right.
And that's what's going on here, for sure.
But if they're hanging their hat on the adrenaline side of it and this is what we're all about, but who is the North Face customer in 2024? Now, again, this is going to be a very inside baseball, kind of inside looking out. But when they're so huge and ubiquitous, and they're easily, I would imagine if they're not the biggest outdoor brand, they're top 3, right? I mean, they've got to be. I would assume it. We'll say top 5 just to be safe. So the vast majority of people, is this what they aspire to by buying the North Face? Is this what they would want? Because I guess you bring up the Nike comp, because the winning isn't for everyone. I feel like for the people on the inside we talked about, who are being a little like, oh, this is the wrong message to send. Whereas I feel like for the masses, they were probably like, okay, this is awesome, right? There was a little bit of that like kind of grit to it that kind of I could see a normal person being like resonating with. I don't know how this plays with someone who just wants to get a North Face jacket because it's like winter now, or somebody who's a little bit more of a casual outdoor, enthusiast who doesn't go out maybe as much and try to do these kinds of things.
Branding doesn't work that way. So that's who you get by having a point of view and speaking to a specific group. Okay. And so what they're doing here is speaking to it with a specific voice and identifying themselves as, to me, what I see from this piece is it is hip, it is contemporary, it is energetic, right? It is colorful. It is of the moment. That's what they're communicating as the brand. So if you want that in your jacket, then you're going to look at a brand that communicates that. Okay. But the idea that I'm going to create my brand piece around the casual purchaser of an item, probably because it's on sale, that's just not the way branding works.
I don't want to bring up that retailer. We're going to try and break our streak today. All right. We're not talking about on sale goods today, Dave. We're not doing it.
We can't say this. I was going to say there's a brand for that person already, Colin. It's called Columbia.
Okay, good. You went with another brand that plays really well here in this conversation.
Right.
Yes,
right.
Correct.
So this is North Face flexing its muscle. It's high concept, high production value, top tier media. I mean, this is they're putting it on YouTube for us to go explore, but it's also going to be running in the New York Times and some bigger publications. There's a media buy behind this, right? And again, this is only a few brands could do this. And I think our industry needs this. It needs things that give you hyped and stoked about the category and wanting to participate in the category. And now I can drill down and create other pieces that are going to speak to that other sides of the psychology or the personalities that are involved in the diverse group of people who enjoy outdoors. But this is letting it be what it is for its moment. I think it's really, really well done.
Well, I think the thing that people are going to miss, and I kind of alluded to this in my open, and look, we just spent the past 5 minutes, putting this under a microscope and talking about, what should they do? What shouldn't they do? How does it compare here? If you go back, one of my deep dive yesterday, going back and looking at these videos, there was one consistent thing, and that the person who makes these kinds of videos, or the entity that makes these videos the most consistently, is the North Face. Sure, you find the occasional Patagonia video. I found Martin hardware videos. I found outdoor research videos. But you couldn't. This played like a commercial, like you would see on TV. They released a 30-second spot, a 60-second spot. The new North Face one I'm talking about. All those other ones, maybe they could have been played on television. Probably they're shown at a sales meeting and put on a website, and that's what they were there to do. And the pushback that I know the folks in our industry, and frankly, it started this morning. I'm already seeing posts on LinkedIn about this. On this video specifically, and as it plays kind of like as I'm talking about the broader outdoor space and how the outdoor space has changed, is that nobody else kind of does messaging like this. Now, the Nike thing, the athletic space is incredibly competitive. Everybody has messaging. Everybody's fighting for that share. And how do we look cool? And knowing full well that you're wearing your running shoes to the airport and that's it. But, we still market like you're going to go run a marathon in them. The outdoor space, consistently over the last 20, 30 years, this is the one brand who actually puts out content like this.
Right.
And so that's an industry and brand, broader problem. If you want to see more people sort of marketing towards the broader outdoor market, I would think.
Who's the biggest brand in our space? I don't think it's an accident that the brand that does this type of communication regularly over the last 10, 15 years is the one that has grown and developed a more broader mainstream audience.
There you go.
Right? I think they're connected because this is the stuff that gets people's emotion. This is an emotional ad. Visually, verbally, that's what this is. This is selling an emotion to be attached to the brand.
Right.
And that's why we try to break it down and be too precise with it. That's where you get into trouble. Right? I think that middle of the road brands get run over. All right? Pick a lane, be that, and be strong. And that's what they're doing. I really believe the industry needs more leadership like this. We need to sell the emotion and we need to sell the stoke of what we do in all of its forms. And by always doing the same thing over and over, like, again, a documentary kind of style where I try to get all of my marketing points into this piece, you lose the excitement, you lose the energy, you lose the pass around. Have you seen this? Have you seen this? I think that if you were to show this to younger consumers who have or who are building their attachments to the outdoor industry, they're going to find this to be appealing and something that cuts through the clutter of the gazillion different cool visual things that they've seen in their feeds, over the last 24 hours. How are you going to break through with that? This does that. Okay.
Yeah.
It's kaleidoscope. It uses a kaleidoscope kind of refracting the image on one of this. Just visually, that's cool. It kind of gets into kind of that outdoorsy psychedelic kind of kaleidoscope thing going on. I think there was probably a practical reason why they did that, probably because they were using a bunch of different footage. And so how do I make it interesting and how do I even it out so it all looks the same? So that's my guess is that we're building kind of visual tension and interest by doing that. But it just turns out to create a good vibe for it. And look, North Face needs this too. They need to step back into this. I feel like, they've gotten... I prefer this way more than the Italian Fashion Week collabs and all that stuff. Now, that's important for the brand as it starts to broaden itself and premiumize itself. But still, this is straight up alpha dog. Like, this is cool. And I think that's what this brand needs. You know what I mean? It's like... a little less runway, a little more descent.
Yeah, I think as I'm kind of reflecting on this, I think I think all things are true. I think what you're saying is absolutely true. I do like seeing something that is more about the activities versus maybe like the Polar Tech Beyond campaign, which came out a few weeks ago and has got is lame as hell. I know folks. I'm sure I know folks who were there that I worked with. I'm like, it is soft and it is not interesting, and it feels incredibly overwrought. And to see something like this where it's like, no, man, here's people doing badass shit in the outdoors. Yeah, we've done that before, but that's who we are. And I think the bigger problem that I'm pointing out is that lack of like, hey, who's here doing stuff with us? Who's here telling? That's what the North Face does. These are the same stories we've told before. And again, I go back and look at the videos. They are the same. This is the modern version of that.
Yeah.
So who does the other things? To bring up Polar Tech and give them credit. It's a video you worked on when you were at Polar Tech. It was called The Outdoors is for Everyone. And for my money, it's still one of the best outdoor videos I've ever seen because it still struck the tone of what it meant to be outdoorsy while by pointing out bigger themes. And I'll link that in the show notes if you guys haven't seen it. You can see some of the work that Dave's done in his past. This is after I had left Polar Tech. So I think we need more of those kinds of things to sit next to the new video from the North Face to kind of get what I'm looking for out of this conversation.
Right. Well, I mean, you bring that up, but those also had two very different purposes behind them, right? With Outdoors Are for Everything, we were really going for a much, even though it's broader in its message, it was much more of an insider type of audience, a smaller group of outdoor industry people. North Face is shooting way bigger.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
And they're
right.
way bigger. And I think that's where they've really created something, though, that... Again, I think that there are plenty of inside folks that are going to dig this for what it is, not think about it too much. And others on the outside are going to be like, yeah, that's cool.
See, I think people on the outside are going to say, yeah, that's cool. I think most of the rhetoric on the inside are going to be people talking like I'm talking. Like, oh, we've seen that before. I mean, it really just feels like this is going to be the industry vibe of like, okay, North Face, you're badass. And then all you sell are T-shirts and trucker caps, you know what I mean? Which is something that I would absolutely say.
Right. And that's why our industry has lagged so far behind in the quality of our messaging and our culture-defining creativity. That is absolutely right.
All right, it's time. Time for our weekly segment to make sure you're getting more out of the outdoors. It's time for More with Thermore. Thermore is the original Italian ingredient brand who's been around since 1972. And being an ingredient brand means you're willing to put your name on the quality and performance of your product. And that's what serious outdoor consumers are looking for. All of you outdoor apparel designers and developers listening to this, you know you can find cheap installations to put into your new garments, but by using Thermore, you're telling your customers that we want to make something that will perform the best and give you the most for your money. You'll find Thermore products globally in brands like Carbon, Stio, Nike, Volcom, Berghaus, and Mammut. Thermore has been doing this the longest, and they still do it the best. Make Thermore part of your next product launch, because whether it's making amazing new garments or staying warm and safe on the trail, you can do more with Thermore. All right, let's talk about a few other stories that come out of the outdoor industry and the outdoor world in the past week, starting with, according to SGB, Gearhead Outfitters hosted a grand reopening of multiple Colorado locations just this past weekend, formerly known as Summit Canyon Mountaineering. The two locations in Glenwood Springs and Grand Junction have officially changed over to Gearhead Outfitters. Founder of Gearhead Outfitters, Ted Herget, said of the reopened locations, quote, "We've carried the same dedication to personalized service, but now with an even wider selection of outdoor gear for every kind of adventurer of those locations." So the constant chatter on this podcast and in the industry lately is always about REI and over the past couple of weeks, Backcountry and the Grassroots Outdoor Alliance. And Gearhead just keeps quietly making moves. We talked about them a little bit this past summer, and now they're back again. They're now at 20 stores. They've opened stores on their own, and they've also integrated folks like these shops in Colorado, as well as Uncle Dan's in the Chicago area and Rock Creek in Tennessee. I want you to all out there listening, mark Gearhead as the retail chain to watch. I had a chance to talk to Ted Herget this past summer, and we're making plans to bring him on the Rock Fight in the future. And I'm so bullish on these guys, mostly because Ted told me specifically that he values the specialty experience, right? He's not just trying to like, hey, let's build something up to make another REI. These are specialty-driven stores, the same thing you would want at a specialty shop. And the more moves they make, the more that others are going to have to reckon with them. I think, honestly, Gearhead feels to me like what EMS could have been. If you've listened long enough, I talk about how the thing about that EMS is interesting is for a chain, you still had very much a local kind of gear shop vibe to them. And that seems to be what Ted is trying to build with Gearhead Outfitters. So, I think what you look at someone like an Evo or a Public Lands, what they're doing is different than this. It's more curated, which it has its own place. But Gearhead appears to be more like gear shops, and they are continuing to expand and just kind of just doing their thing and doing it quietly. So, Dave, any thoughts on Gearhead Outfitters?
No, I think you're spot on. I think it's really a almost a balance between the gear shop and the curated, right? They're bringing a little more sense of branding sophistication. Not over the top, but it's just recognizable. It's simple. It's just got a little bit more fun and polish to it. I think they're moving into those spaces well. It's not just kind of overtaking it and doesn't seem right. Like you said, it's still a gear shop.
Yeah.
And so it kind of connects that way. But yeah, I definitely like what they're doing, and they do seem like they've got some momentum with the model. And yeah, keep it going.
Yeah, we also are going to have Gabe Meyer from the GOA on the show in the next few weeks. So I want to make sure I ask him about them as well and see what the specialty world is thinking of this sort of the rising retailer coming out of Arkansas. But all right, listen, let's take one quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about a couple more stories and then get to our parting shots. This episode of The Rock Fight is brought to you by the Great Malden Outdoors, an outdoor enablement campaign in the city of Malden, Massachusetts, and the brains behind this initiative, Darren Josie. He's here with me right now. Darren, first of all, what is an outdoor enablement campaign?
An outdoor enablement campaign provides 4 things: advertising, resources, programming, and youth development. These are the 4 things that I believe are really important to getting more people outside.
So why is this campaign important to DEI efforts in the outdoor industry?
We have to start by getting more people outside, and that can start their journey from 1, becoming someone who just enjoys outdoor recreation as a lifestyle, but 2, a path for a job. No one told me that going outside and rock climbing could lead to a job one day, or fishing, or bike riding. Didn't know that was a thing until I got into the industry, and I want to change that and start that journey a lot earlier for way more people in our society.
Hey, man, and lastly, how can outdoor brands and retailers help or participate?
Go to thegreatmaldenOutdoors.com, click on the contact button, and reach out. We are always looking for donations for gear, funds, and expertise. You can lend your existing staff to lead an online course, or if you're in the New England area, come on down and lead a class. We're looking for more programming.
Head to thegreatmaldenOutdoors.com and click contact to build a partnership today. All right, next story. Speaking of public lands, like we just did in the last story, according to their earnings results published in the Daily last week, Dick's Sporting Goods delivered a strong second quarter based in part on, quote, customer experience, enhancing store service, and growing its house of sport concept, which includes amenities such as climbing walls and batting cages, and quote. So I'm making predictions on the show because I'm bringing this up because I want to make another prediction. And Dave, you can hold me to account on this if I end up being wrong. I'm predicting September 15th as we record this, Dick's is going to abandon public lands and go full on into House of Sport. If this happens, I want everyone to look back and say, The Rock Fight called it back in September. So public lands came in with a splash, and they really were trying to be like, look, Dick's is going to have, we're going to have it all. We're going to have our own version of REI. We're going to have our traditional sporting goods stores. But it's been very quiet lately on the public lands front. And House of Sport has been very loud from the Dick's camp. And if you look at what House of Sport is, it kind of has got a city sports in the 2000s vibes where they have outdoor, but it's also sporting goods. And I think they can blend that together. I mean, there's climbing walls in there now. And I think the name alone is ambiguous enough that it can be sort of a catch-all. They apparently opened 1 or 2 new stores at Public Lands. That's the one thing that gave me pause on making my prediction this year. But I feel like all of these little specialty shops from Dick's is just going to move into House of Sport because they have been very bullish on the House of Sport brand. So yeah, my prediction, Public Lands goes away at some point. I don't know when, maybe in the near future, maybe the not too distant future, and Dick's turns it all into House of Sport. That's my prediction.
Very bold, Colin.
All right, lastly today, word has it, I'm hearing some buzzing around that Interbike is out running a survey. Interbike, the bike trade show that folded up, I want to say like 2020 timeframe. I can't remember the exact year. But they're running a survey implying that the discontinued trade show is on the verge of a comeback. It's all speculation for now, but given how Sea Otter has grown and become the trade show that everyone points to as a model from what they want from a bike gathering, if this happens, I'd say it's going to be an uphill climb for Interbike, and we'll need to offer something pretty unique to be a hit. I mean, getting together to go ride bikes in the deserts because that show was always in Las Vegas is always fun to do, but maybe it is time for this show to return. I don't know. I just, the more trade shows, I feel like, attendance is up in certain shows, so everyone's like, oh, bring back more trade shows. And we talk about that a lot, obviously, around here. But I don't know if we need Interbike now with the way Sea Otter has grown. I don't know. We'll keep an eye on it, hearing some buzz around it. We'll see if it actually happens. But everyone, if you hear anything about Interbike, let me know. myrockfight@gmail.com. And all right, guess what? It's time for the parting shot. Dave, you got the floor.
Well, I like to take my parting shot in a literary direction. So this week's book.
Dave's Book Club.
That's right, it is. It's becoming that. And this one's not a new one by any stretch. And it's kind of a classic of outdoor reading. It's called The Emerald Mile by Kevin Fedarko. And
Good book.
Have you? Yeah, you've
read this
that
one, yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And for those that don't know it, it is about a couple of crazy people that wanted to set the speed record going down the Grand Canyon in a dory, and they did it in 1983 during one of the biggest flood releases ever in the Grand Canyon. So you had massive water running down there, again, kind of irresponsibly massive water, and just what these guys did to try to set that record. And it's just really well told. He's done a couple other pieces about the Grand Canyon that are just, he's just an incredible storyteller. And so I think making something that the outcome of still seem taut and kind of hanging on your seat. And like I said, the language and the wording is great. So anyway, just one I recommend to give you a try, The Emerald Mile by Kevin Fedarko.
Yeah, great book. All right, my parting shot, not nearly as nice as yours. I'm throwing a rock at Major League Baseball because somehow they lost me. I was the biggest baseball fan. You may have heard Hausman and I talk about baseball every once in a while. It was my favorite sport. I play hockey, but I like baseball. And this summer, I kind of was following along actually early on with a lot of different teams and just sort of paying attention. And it just occurred to me, I have no idea what the standings are. I have no idea who's good this year. I have completely checked out on Major League Baseball. And I don't know quite how it happened. I know over the past few decades or so, interest has trailed off of baseball. But I kind of hung on, and now all of a sudden, I don't know. And I don't know if I'm even going to watch the playoffs in October. It's weird. It just went away. I'm like, I don't really care anymore. I don't know how that happens. How do you like something once, and then now you just don't care anymore? It just happens, I guess. So I'm blaming Major League Baseball. I'm throwing a rock at you. And that's my parting shot for the week.
Fair enough.
All right. All right, everybody, that's the show for today. The Rock Fight is a production of Rock Fight LLC. Our producer today was David Karstad. Art direction provided by Sarah Gensert. I'm Colin True. Thanks for listening. And here to take us out is Krista Makes. He's here to sing the Rock Fight fight song. Come back on Wednesday for Hausman Adventure Headlines. That's early this week. He's going to be running that. We're going to run those on Wednesday now. So make sure you come back for that. Now, like I said, here's Krista Makes. We'll see you next time, Rock Fighters.
Rock